The car crash triggered an explosion. After I risked my life to save my brother, I was swarmed by the media. Facing a torrent of praise, my brother blurted out that he would grant me any wish. Chloe, thinking I'd use this chance to get rid of her, immediately burst into tears, accusing me of bullying her. But I just looked my brother in the eye and, word by word, stated my request. I want to cut all ties with you. From this day forward, we will be strangers. The crowd was stunned. My brother's face was a mask of confusion. No one could understand why I would walk away from my brother, the wealthiest man in the country. Only I knew the truth. I had been reborn. Nora, think carefully before you speak. Hearing the threat simmering in his voice, I shuddered and looked up. Seeing my shocked expression, a reporter smiled and pushed a microphone toward me. Nora, you moved everyone when you risked your life to save your own brother. Mr. Chin himself said he would grant you any request, so don't be shy. And if he can't make your wish come true on his own, we'll all help you. I felt my brother Ethan's gaze on me, and a chill ran down my spine. Amid the reporter's eager encouragement, Chloe, the girl my family raised by mistake, suddenly lunged forward. She threw herself into Ethan's arms, sobbing, shattering the strange silence. Brother, Nora gets her kicks out of tormenting me. I know she's going to use this chance to drive me away. I don't care about that, but I can't bear the thought of leaving you. Ethan held Chloe tight, without a hint of hesitation, looking at her as if she were a priceless treasure. And I, the one who had charged into a fire, who had dragged him to safety, my clothes burned to tatters and covered in ash, was blatantly ignored. The scene was painfully awkward. The reporters started whispering among themselves, but I remained perfectly composed. I stared coldly at the embracing pair. This whole accident started because Chloe had asked me to drive her car to pick something up. As I was heading downstairs, I ran into Ethan leaving the house. He offered to drive instead, so I hopped in the back to take a quick nap. Not long after, Ethan suddenly yelled that the brakes had failed. We careened out of control and smashed into a tanker truck on the side of the road. I wasn't badly hurt, but the fire from the crash ignited the tanker, trapping Ethan in the blaze. The whole thing could have blown up at any second. When I ran back to save him, I had already accepted that I might die. Just as I pulled him out of the driver's seat and dragged him to safety, a massive explosion ripped through the air. A second later, and Ethan would have been burned alive. And now, he was offering to grant me one wish, but telling me to think carefully before I spoke. I lowered my eyes and sighed deeply. Chloe shot me a triumphant smirk, before snatching the microphone from a reporter. Nora may have saved my brother, but that was just a matter of opportunity. If I had been there, I would have done even more. Besides, everyone knows Nora is vicious and cunning. At home, she lives to bully me and has never cared about her brother. Isn't that right, Ethan? Ethan's expression darkened, but with the microphone in his face, he followed Chloe's lead and nodded. The crowd erupted. I'd heard the real and fake heiresses didn't get along, but I never thought Nora was this nasty behind the scenes. Chloe was raised in a wealthy family. Nora may have their blood, but she grew up in the country. She's probably just some uneducated punk. Ethan himself just confirmed it. It must be true. My eyes were locked on my brother, Ethan. My nails dug into my palms, but I didn't feel the pain. Ethan, are you saying that what Chloe said is true? Hearing the tremor in my voice, Ethan finally deigned to glance at me. Nora, it's true you saved me. But that doesn't erase all the horrible things you've done to Chloe. I know you've been trying to push her out of this family, but you'd better remember who's in charge here. I am. I bit my lips so hard I could taste blood, fighting to keep the tears from falling. Of course. Even if I were reborn 1,000 times, my own brother's heart would always belong to Chloe, the fake heiress. I was switched at birth and grew up in poverty in the countryside, suffering for 12 years before I was found. My parents, consumed by guilt, wanted to give me everything good in the world. But my brother, Ethan, was strangely hostile. He said I was stealing the resources that should have been Chloe's, but he never seemed to consider that Chloe had stolen 12 years of my life. When my parents bought me jewelry, Ethan would insist on buying an identical piece for Chloe. If he couldn't find a perfect match, he would wheedle, bully, and even snatch mine away until I gave it to her. Not long ago, Our parents died in an accident, leaving Ethan, who was 7 years older than me, as my only remaining family. On their deathbeds, they held his hand, their eyes filled with tears. Nora will be your only family from now on. We need you to swear you'll protect her and be good to her for the rest of your life. I stood by the hospital bed and saw it clearly. Ethan nodded. At that moment, I thought maybe my brother had changed, that he finally had a place for me, his real sister, in his heart. So on that day, when he promised to grant me any wish, I thought this was my chance. Once Chloe was gone, he would be my brother and mine alone. We could support and rely on each other, like a real brother and sister. Chloe, get out of our house. It was the only way. That day, I had been so full of hope when I stated my wish, thinking it was the start of a happy new life. But I never could have imagined that the promise I'd earned by risking my life would lead to my own brutal, merciless slaughter. Tears finally streamed down my face. Meanwhile, Chloe was still curled up in Ethan's arms, babbling on about how wicked I was. My face went cold. I walked forward, snatched the microphone from her hand, and turned to the crowd surrounding us, speaking slowly. My wish is. Before I could finish, Ethan clamped his hand over the mic. He looked down at me, his eyes cold, his voice devoid of any warmth. Nora, Chloe is my sister. If you dare do anything to hurt her, he trailed off, the threat hanging heavy in the air. I wiped away my tears and took a deep breath. Then, in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, I said, "So according to you, Mr. Cheen, Chloe, the fake heiress, is your sister, and I'm not. Is that right? In that case, I want everyone here to be my witness. From this day forward, I, Nora Cheen, am cutting all ties with you, Ethan Cheen. We will go our separate ways and never see each other again. That is my one and only wish." When I finished, the entire scene fell silent. After a long moment, the murmuring began. Is Nora insane? The Cheen family is practically royalty. Cutting ties with Ethan is like cutting ties with a fortune. I don't think Nora's the crazy one, I think you're all blind. She just saved Ethan and she's covered in injuries, but he and Chloe are ganging up on her. Something isn't right here. Nora, can you tell us why you want to cut ties with Ethan? Finally, someone thought to ask me. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, Ethan grabbed my arm and pulled me aside. Nora, what is the meaning of this? You know Mom and Dad's last wish was for me to take care of you. How could you say something like that in front of everyone? Have you thought about how this makes me look? Chloe, her face streaked with tears, rushed over to pull Ethan away and grabbed my hand. Brother, don't blame her. I know Nora's real wish is for me to leave. She was just afraid you wouldn't agree, so she's trying to force your hand with this reverse psychology. Nora, you're always bullying and pushing me away, I'm used to it. If you want me to go, I'll go. With that, Chloe dabbed at her eyes, turned, and after a few stumbling steps, dramatically fell to the ground. Seeing the red scrape on Chloe's knee, Ethan seethed with rage. Nora, what kind of stunt are you trying to pull now? Chloe has put up with you and bent over backward for you since day one, but you've used your position to torment her. And now you're pulling this disgusting trick to drive her away. If anything happens to Chloe, I'll make you pay. He rushed over to help the frail Chloe to her feet, pulled out a handkerchief, and meticulously wiped a speck of dust from her legs. The sight stung my eyes. I looked down and saw myself. My legs were gashed and bleeding from where the car door had scraped me, the blood mixed with black ash from the explosion. The hem of my dress was burned into a ragged mess. I was a stark contrast to Chloe in her pristine white dress. My own brother, Ethan, couldn't see my mangled body, but he could see a speck of dust on Chloe's dress. Watching this scene unfold, I suddenly felt a sense of release. I made myself perfectly clear. My wish is to cut all ties with the Cheen family, with Ethan Cheen, and with you, Chloe. And Chloe, please stop staging this drama and trying to smear my name. From now on, I couldn't care less if you two have a brother-sister bond or an incestuous affair. With their secret exposed in public, Ethan's face went white. He slowly rose, walked over to me, and raised his hand, slapping me hard across the face. You bitch. How dare you slander your sister's name in front of the cameras? I don't care what twisted game you're playing, but you've gotten your wish. Now get the hell out. No one had ever seen Ethan lose control like this. Every camera immediately swung toward him. I ignored the crowd's whispers and speculations and simply turned and walked away. Being reborn has made me realize something. Life is a journey of making peace with yourself. It wasn't my fault that I couldn't earn my brother's love. In the past, I always thought that if I just tried harder, even if I had to sacrifice my own principles, I could win the affection of a family member. But now all I want is to live for myself. I pulled out my phone, opened my email, and sent a message. It was a job offer from a company in another state. They had offered me a 7-figure salary plus founder's stock. I turned it down because I couldn't bear to be so far from Ethan. His health was fragile. He was allergic to so many things that even a change in his clothes fabric could give him a rash. On top of that, he had severe asthma. Every time he had an attack, I was always the first one there with his medication. It was only when he was sick that he ever seemed to remember me. I was afraid that if I moved away, the self-indulgent Chloe wouldn't look after him as carefully as I did. But now none of that mattered anymore. As soon as they heard I was accepting the offer, the company was ecstatic and invited me to head over right away. I walked into a mall, found a restroom, and splashed some water on my face, planning to buy myself a decent set of clothes. When I looked in the mirror, I suddenly realized my necklace was gone. My heart dropped. I frantically replayed the day's events, but I couldn't remember if I had lost it at the crash site. Just then my phone buzzed. A friend had sent me a screenshot. It was from Chloe's social media feed. The picture showed her and Ethan with the caption, "The annoying pest finally left on her own. A great day." In the photo, my necklace was clearly visible, hanging around Chloe's neck. My hand holding the phone began to shake uncontrollably. It was the photo locket my parents had left me, with a picture of them holding me as a newborn inside. They had placed it around my neck like a treasure, telling me gently that I was their most precious baby. In all the years since I'd been brought back to the Chin family, it was the one thing Chloe had never managed to steal from me, and she resented me deeply for it. I must have lost it when I rushed into the fire to save Ethan, and Chloe must have picked it up. I was trembling with rage. Forgetting about the clothes, I hailed a cab and rushed home. As soon as I got out of the car, I ran smack into Chloe, who was just about to leave. The main hall was empty. I hurried upstairs, and as I pushed open the door to my room, I saw Chloe, her clothes in disarray, with 2 strange men. When Chloe saw me, she let out a piercing scream. "Nora, you said you were leaving the family, but it was just a ploy to make me lower my guard? So what if you saw us? Let me tell you, Nora, for the rest of your life, Ethan will be wrapped around my little finger. You want to take me down? Dream on." I had never imagined this side of Chloe, but I couldn't be bothered to deal with her. I just held out my hand. "Give me back my necklace, and I'll leave immediately." Chloe froze for a second, then remembered the necklace. She fished it out from a pile of clothes and dangled it triumphantly. "Nora, everything in the Chin family is mine, including this necklace. But since you love it so much, I think I'll destroy it right now." With that, she let her fingers go limp. The necklace fell to the floor, and she raised her foot to stomp on it. I lunged forward to stop her, but the 2 men, now fully dressed, grabbed me and held me tight. As Chloe crushed the necklace under her heel, I screamed curses at her. She grabbed my chin, slapped me hard several times, then lifted her foot and began kicking me repeatedly in the stomach with all her strength. I crumpled into a ball of pain, unable to fight back. All I could do was fumble for my phone and dial my emergency contact. The phone rang a few times before it was answered, and my brother Ethan's voice came through. "Nora, what kind of game are you playing now? You're calling me for help? When you were slandering Chloe in public, did you ever think you'd regret it?" Chloe's face turned white. She lunged and snatched my phone. Seizing the opportunity, I broke free and screamed in desperation. "Ethan, Chloe is in my room with 2 men. They're trying to kill me to shut me up. Come back quickly." Chloe's face went deathly pale, but her eyes darted around, and she quickly came up with a new plan. "Brother, Nora found out her little trick to force me out didn't work, so she snuck back to teach me a lesson. Luckily, 2 of our neighbors heard me scream and came to help, or she would have beaten me to death. I can't believe she's still trying to ruin my reputation. Brother, I'm so hurt." She sobbed as she spoke, but her face was twisted in a savage grin. The two men, seeing their cue, clamped their hands over my mouth, preventing me from making a sound. I struggled with all my might, but couldn't break free. In the struggle, Chloe had already hung up the phone and casually picked up a fruit knife from the table. Nora, I wasn't going to do anything to you, but now you know too much. The only way I can feel safe is if you can never speak again. I watched the tip of the knife inch closer, backing away as a primal urge to survive took over. Chloe just curled her lip. Why are you hiding? You were so brave when you exposed my relationship with my brother in public, weren't you? You were so smug when Mom and Dad gave you the shares that should have been mine. Well, let me tell you something today. I'm not just your sister, I'm your sister-in-law. Even if I kill you, all I have to do is shed a single tear, and Ethan will stand in front of me and make excuses for me. With that, she raised her arm high. A glint of cold steel flashed, and the tip of the knife pierced my neck. At the critical moment, the hands of the two men holding me suddenly loosened. Instinct drove me backward. The blade just grazed my skin, sparing my life. Chloe's eyes were filled with madness. She glared at the two men. What are you doing? Can't you even hold down one woman? Swearing, she raised the knife to strike again. I turned to run, but a sharp pain shot through my lower back. Nora, I want you to die here. Chloe, you monster, stop right now. I felt a wave of cold, then heat, spread across my back. When I reached back, my hand came away covered in warm, flowing blood. Chloe stared blankly, and then a clatter echoed as the knife fell from her hand. An elderly woman, clutching her chest and gasping for breath, hurried toward me. Nora, are you all right? Grandma was too late. I'll take you to the hospital right now. Chloe, you ungrateful beast. If anything happens to my real granddaughter, I'll make you pay with your life. My consciousness faded with the loss of blood. I vaguely felt something cold on my face. Looking up, I saw it was my grandmother's tears. Grandma, don't worry, I'm okay. After saying that, I couldn't hold on any longer and passed out. When I opened my eyes again, all I could see was white. Seeing me awake, my grandmother rushed to speak. Nora, don't move. Do you want water? Something to eat? I'll get it for you. The doctor said you were lucky the blade missed anything vital. If I had been even a moment later, you might have. Her voice broke, and she began to sob. What a sin. This is all a terrible sin. I saw the news and knew you were a good child. You must have been terribly wrong to want to leave. I rushed here as fast as I could, but I was still a step too late. I tried to sit up to wipe her tears, but the pain searing through my body held me down. Grandma, don't cry. It doesn't hurt. It's my fault for not being careful. I walked in on Chloe's dirty secret, and she tried to kill me to silence me. Grandma, I want to leave this place, but before I do, I want the people who hurt me to be punished. With tears in her eyes, my grandmother nodded and pulled out her phone to video call Ethan. Ethan, you little brat. Didn't I tell you Nora was stabbed by Chloe? Nora just got out of emergency surgery. Where have you been? Grandma, I already told you, this is all an act Nora staged. How can you not believe me? Chloe told me everything. Nora is a heartless snake who twisted the truth and then stabbed herself to frame Chloe. I've been dealing with the media fallout for days, and it's been a nightmare. Can you please stop protecting that little schemer and causing more trouble for me? My grandmother stared at the phone in shock, her hand trembling. Ethan, are you even human? I'm your grandmother. I saw Chloe stab Nora with my own eyes. How can you not even believe me? Do you have any idea that Nora was in critical condition twice? She is your biological sister. Do you have a single shred of conscience left? On the video call, Ethan just shrugged dismissively. She's the one who said she wanted to cut all ties with me. You don't live with us, you have no idea how deceitful Nora really is. Everything she's doing is just because she regrets what she said and is too proud to beg for my forgiveness, so she staged this whole drama. Look, I have to go. I'm taking Chloe shopping. With that, Ethan hung up without a second thought. My grandmother stared at the blank screen for a long time, only snapping out of it when she heard me call her name. Nora, is this how that monster always treats you? What a sin, what a terrible sin. Nora, how much have you suffered all these years? She pulled me into her arms, her tears falling into my hair. Feeling the cold drops, I spoke in a hoarse voice. Grandma, where's the knife? It has Chloe's fingerprints on it. I want to call the police. Grandma wiped her tears, pulled the bloody fruit knife from her bag, placed it on the nightstand, and dialed 911. A short while later, 2 police officers hurried in and told the staff to have a doctor examine my injuries. Before the doctor arrived, however, Ethan and Chloe showed up from their shopping trip. Nora, have you no shame? You're not dead, so why are you bothering the police? Officers, I know exactly what happened here. It was Nora who deliberately framed us. Let's just drop the charges. I'm so sorry to have wasted your time. The 2 officers exchanged a look, then turned to me. You're Nora Cheen? Filing a false police report has legal consequences. My face was cold. I didn't even glance at Ethan and Chloe. I'm not just pressing charges against Chloe for assault, I said flatly. I'm charging her with attempted murder. The air in the room went still. Nora, don't push it. I'm doing you a favor by telling the police to leave. How dare you keep provoking me? I know you and Chloe. Chloe is pure and kind-hearted, while you, Nora, are devious and malicious. Ethan's words shot out, each one a dagger in my heart. He then added condescendingly, I'm giving you one last chance. Apologize to Chloe, and then transfer all of your shares to her, free of charge. Otherwise, I'll make sure you stupid girl, suffer for this. I tilted my head up to meet Ethan's gaze, my voice steady. Ethan, what right do you have to order me around? We have no relationship now. Why should I listen to you? Chloe, who had been standing silently, immediately chimed in. Brother, it's okay. I don't want anything. I just want you 2 to stop fighting. Let's just ask the police to leave. Our family has a reputation to maintain. If this gets out, it will be embarrassing for everyone, right, brother? Ethan snorted. See, that's the difference between you 2. You hurt Chloe, and yet she's here pleading for you. Officers, please, you can go. We'll handle our family matters behind closed doors. He sat down on my hospital bed, apparently waiting for me to back down. But I kept my eyes on the police officers. I am pressing charges. This knife is evidence of the assault. And furthermore, I suspect the car in the explosion was tampered with. At my words, Chloe's face went white with shock and she nearly collapsed. Seeing her reaction, I knew I had guessed right. The cars at our house were meticulously maintained by a dedicated staff. How could it be that on the one day Chloe asked me to run an errand for her, the only car available was one with faulty brakes? If I hadn't run into Ethan on his way out, I would have been the only one in that car when it crashed. No matter how I thought about it, this was Chloe's plot to get rid of me. The officers' expressions turned serious, and they immediately began asking for details. Chloe, regaining her composure, clung to Ethan and began to sob. Brother, you see? She's always like this. She has to turn the whole house upside down, willing to risk everything just to frame me. But don't be angry. Nora grew up in the countryside, so she has some bad habits, it can't be helped. I'm willing to forgive her this time. I just want you 2 to stop fighting and not do anything that would hurt the family's reputation. Ethan snorted again. Forget her. She still shows no remorse. Even if Nora dies right here, I won't lift a finger. If she wants to press charges, let her. Not only will I let her, but I'm going to call a press conference and let the whole world see Nora Cheen's true colors. Chloe's pouting expression froze on her face. She stood there, stunned, a comical sight. She had tried to play the victim as usual, pretending to care about the big picture, hoping to manipulate Ethan with a few words. But she hadn't counted on one thing. Ethan cared about his pride more than anything. After I had publicly declared our separation, he hated me. Why would he pass up an opportunity to humiliate me? A few days later, just as I was able to sit up, Ethan burst into my hospital room with a horde of reporters. This is my so-called sister who cut ties with me, only to frame and slander my family. The police forensics report is in, and today, right here, we will expose Nora Cheen's true face. At his words, dozens of cameras focused on my pale face. Nora, why do you keep trying to frame Chloe? Is it really as the rumors say, that you're jealous because you were switched at birth? We heard you even filed a false police report to frame Chloe. Do you know the consequences of doing that? I buried my head under the covers, ignoring the chaos around me, and just waited for the police to arrive. A short while later, a group of officers hurried into the room. The moment they entered, they brandished a pair of handcuffs. Miss Chloe, for tampering with the vehicle's brakes and then deliberately inducing another person to drive it, you are under suspicion of attempted murder. Your fingerprints were also found on the knife, implicating you in assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. Please come with us. Chloe stood frozen for a moment, then immediately protested. Don't be ridiculous. I have witnesses. Nora stabbed herself. Those two neighbors can testify. As for the brakes, I don't know anything about that. The car was destroyed in the fire. You can't frame me for this. Just as she finished speaking, several other officers entered the room, escorting the two men from that day. Chloe, didn't you promise us 5 million yuan each in hush money to provide a false testimony? The money was withdrawn as soon as it was deposited. If we hadn't noticed it right away, we would have been scammed by you, you bitch. Chloe stared at the two men who had turned on her, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. Beside me, my grandmother looked down at me and smiled knowingly. Chloe's credit card was from Ethan, but they had both forgotten one thing. My grandmother was notified of every major transaction from the family accounts. We hadn't been idle these past few days. We had been tracking Chloe's every move. Once we found the large payment, we immediately had it reversed. Chloe, with her guilty conscience, hadn't dared to answer the men's calls. She thought her plan was flawless, but she never imagined how fragile the loyalty she bought with her body and money truly was. In the dead silence, I raised an eyebrow. So, why don't you two tell us what really happened that day? The two men, having already been personally persuaded by my grandmother, didn't dare hide anything and told the whole truth. Chloe, her hands now cuffed, suddenly found a burst of strength. She lunged forward and began clawing at the men. Shut up. Don't you lie. I don't even know you. Both of you, shut up. Shut up. In stark contrast to her hysteria, Ethan stood beside her, so quiet it was as if he wasn't there. But his trembling fingers betrayed his inner turmoil. Chloe, how could you do this to Nora? She's my biological sister. Chloe's lips were pale as she shook her head frantically. I didn't, brother, listen to me, they're lying, it must be. Her finger shot out, pointing at my grandmother. It's these two vile people. They conspired to ruin me. Brother, you have to stand up for me. Ethan's eyes followed her finger to me and my grandmother, his face a canvas of conflict. But before he could make a decision, a police officer produced a piece of the car wreckage. Mr. Chin, you must be familiar with your own car. Fortunately, the fire was extinguished in time, and this section of the brake line was preserved. Oh, and by the way, as for why you had trouble escaping, the driver's side seatbelt was also tampered with. If I'm not mistaken, the seatbelt wouldn't unbuckle no matter what you did, correct? Faced with the officer's question, Ethan began to tremble all over. His face turned ashen, and he suddenly kicked out at Chloe. I remember it perfectly. That day you asked Nora to drive your car to get something for you. If I hadn't gotten in that car by chance, my own sister would be dead right now. Caught off guard, Chloe was knocked to the ground. She scrambled back up, her face a mess of snot and tears. It's not like that, I had no idea. Before Chloe could finish, a technician from the forensics department brought in surveillance footage from a camera on the street. As it happened, the car had been parked right at the gate, and as it happened, the camera had captured Chloe tampering with it. Watching the savage expression slowly creep across Ethan's face, I felt a smile curve my lips. How does it feel, brother? To be betrayed by the one you trusted most? After a few ragged breaths, Ethan attacked Chloe like a wild animal. You bitch. You lied to me. You played me for a fool. You told me Nora tormented you, bullied you, so I took your side and hurt her over and over again. I only trusted you, but what have you done? You knew I was in that car too, so why didn't you stop it? If it weren't for Nora, I'd be dead right now. Chloe, do you even have a heart? The police quickly separated them and led Chloe away. Ethan knelt on the floor in a daze, then slowly turned to look at me. Nora, I was wrong all these years. So terribly wrong. I I wasn't a good brother. I listened to lies. I was biased. I failed you. Nora, can you forgive me? I'll hire the best lawyers to make sure Chloe spends the rest of her life in prison, paying for what she did. Please, can you forgive me? His last words were so soft, as if he already knew the answer. I shook my head. Mr. Chin, we have no relationship now. That day, Ethan knelt by my bed until security guards removed him. Then he stood outside my hospital room door all night. I slept soundly. Before long, Chloe's verdict came down. Just as Ethan had promised, she would spend the rest of her life behind bars. After that, Ethan came to see me several more times, begging for forgiveness. But now I didn't have to lift a finger. Countless doctors and patients would shoo him away from me. After all, wasn't he the one who wanted to expose me? He failed to expose me, but he succeeded in exposing Chloe and himself. Amid the endless accusations and curses from the public, Ethan withered like a dead tree. The day I was discharged from the hospital, my grandmother brought me news about him. He had gotten drunk and killed himself at home. Before he died, he wrote a will leaving everything to me. I took the documents from the lawyer, placed them on my pillow, and fell into a deep sleep. In my dream, I seemed to return to the day I was first brought back to the Chin family. A small, timid me stared at the grand villa, and a young Ethan, his face wreathed in smiles, opened his arms to me. Are you my sister? From now on, I'm your brother. I'll cherish you and take care of you. I looked at the little boy, and a single tear slipped from the corner of my eye. When I woke up, the tear was gone. Let's clear our heads and listen to the next story. Achoo. Ugh, another runny nose? Sarah, you're a med student. You think this is a cold? I opened my eyes and met the big, watery eyes of my cousin Jessica. Her nose was already red from being rubbed so much the skin above her lip was raw from tissues. She looked so pitiful. In my last life, it was that same pitiful expression that fooled me. The moment she said she felt sick, I used all my medical knowledge to help her, running through every possible diagnosis. Finally, when she mentioned, I washed my face with some stream water during my graduation trip a few days ago, I immediately knew. Oh no, a leech must have gotten into her nose from the water. I quickly poured her a bowl of raw egg, trying to lure the leech out with the smell. Sure enough, a few minutes later, a finger-length leech wriggled out of her nostril. Jessica fainted on the spot. We rushed her to the hospital. The doctors there were full of praise. Good thing you brought her in when you did, they said. The leech was in there long enough to cause sinusitis. What she's been leaking isn't mucus, it's cerebrospinal fluid. That day, my aunt and uncle's family were endlessly grateful. My aunt even declared, when Jessica gets her government job, we'll give you $10,000 as a thank you. But after Jessica went home, whether it was psychological or not, she kept feeling like her nose, mouth, and ears were itchy. She became convinced there were still leech eggs inside her. So, copying my method, she started chugging raw eggs, despite being allergic to them. A week before her job interview, she had such a severe allergic reaction that she was hospitalized overnight. In the end, she had to go to the interview with her face covered in acne. When the scores came out, she got a 3. Honestly, I suspected she must have punched an interviewer to get a score that low. But she blamed it all on me. It's all your fault for giving me that raw egg folk remedy. If it wasn't for you, why would I have eaten raw eggs? If I hadn't had an allergic reaction, how could I have gotten such a low score? Even my aunt and uncle joined in, wailing, "Give my daughter back her government career, or you'll pay for it with your life." And so they drugged my food. When I woke up, they were stuffing my body with leeches. My hands and feet were tied, I couldn't move. I could only feel those slimy things crawling on me, relentlessly sucking my blood. After I died, I learned the truth. My grandmother had left me a house. But since my parents died early, my aunt and uncle had kept it a secret from me. The moment I was dead, they transferred the property and all my money into their own names. Even Jessica said, "Good riddance. A government job only pays a few thousand a month. This house alone is worth decades of salary." I never thought the family ties I cherished so much would become the knife that slaughtered me. This life I won't be a busybody anymore. I'm curious to see, without me, just how big will that leech in your nose get, dear cousin? So I suppressed the grief in my heart and replied to Jessica, "Did you go near any water during your trip?" "Yeah, we soaked our feet in a stream for a bit and splashed some water on our faces." I smiled. "Then you probably just caught a cold from the chilly water." Jessica said, "I should probably go to the hospital just in case. My interview is only a week away." Before she could finish, my aunt came out of the kitchen shouting, "What hospital? Wasn't the money we spent on your prep course enough? Your interview is in a week, and you have the nerve to go on a graduation trip instead of studying." Jessica scoffed. "What do you know? I got the top score on the written exam, and I'm a dozen points ahead of second place. As long as I don't get into a fistfight with the interviewers, the job is in the bag." Her mother spat back. "It's in the bag when the official list is posted, got it? Until then, you're not going anywhere. You're staying home to study." With that, she mixed a packet of cold medicine for Jessica. "Drink this. I'll make you chicken soup for lunch to build up your strength. Let's make sure you land this job next week." Jessica had no choice but to obey. Watching her obediently drink the soup, I felt a flicker of excitement. That's right, build up your strength. That way, the leech in your nose will grow nice and fat. The next morning, I was woken up by Jessica's screams. "Mom, blood. I'm having a massive nosebleed. We have to go to the hospital." I opened my bedroom door to see Jessica pacing frantically in the living room, her face and hands smeared with blood. I knew this was the leech in her nose damaging her nasal lining as it fed. But my aunt didn't. She came out and slapped Jessica across the face. "What hospital? Have you finished your online interview classes? It's summer, you're just overheated. The chicken soup I made yesterday was too rich for you. It's just a nosebleed, stop making a fuss. Stuff some tissues up there and it'll be fine." With that, my aunt grabbed a handful of toilet paper, rolled it into wads, and shoved them all up Jessica's nostrils. Looking at Jessica, I almost wanted to laugh. Well, that's one way to block the leech's escape route. My aunt quickly shooed Jessica back to her room to study, then turned to me with a sigh. "Yesterday it was a cold, today it's a nosebleed. I think she's just making excuses to get out of studying. Sarah, make sure you keep an eye on your cousin. Don't let her slack off." I nodded. "Of course, Auntie. Don't worry, I'll watch her closely. I'll watch her very closely, and make sure the leech eats her brain." Under my aunt's watchful eye, Jessica spent the entire day with tissues stuffed up her nose, attending her online interview classes. The bleeding did seem to stop. My aunt gloated. "See? All it took was some tissues. I told you, you were just trying to get out of studying. Now stay home and focus on your classes. You have to land this job." Jessica nodded weakly, but only I knew her lips were already turning pale. The bleeding hadn't stopped, the leech had just crawled deeper into her sinuses. Jessica was already showing signs of anemia, but what did I care? This life, I wouldn't lift a finger. The night before Jessica's interview, at 3 in the morning, my aunt shook me awake. "Sarah, come quick and look at your cousin. I keep calling her name, but she won't answer." I rubbed my eyes, saw the panic on my aunt's face, and threw off my covers, rushing into Jessica's room. Her face was as white as a sheet, her lips bloodless. Her eyes were shut tight, but sweat was pouring down her forehead. I touched her forehead. She was running a fever. I knew she must have contracted a virus from the leech. I quietly took a step back. Who knew what kind of virus it was? I wasn't about to get infected. I told my aunt, "Auntie, Jessica's passed out. We can't wait, we need to get her to a hospital." My aunt hesitated. "But her interview is tomorrow." "Then let's just take her to the community clinic downstairs. At least they can put her on N4. If she wakes up, she won't miss her interview." My aunt thought that made sense and quickly hoisted Jessica onto her back and headed downstairs. Watching their frantic retreat, I finally allowed myself a satisfied smile. Perfect. The little clinic downstairs doesn't even have a CT scanner. They'll never find the big leech in her nose. Sure enough, when we got Jessica to the clinic, it was so late that only a young nurse and an intern were on duty. The intern looked like he had just graduated and had little experience. After asking about Jessica's symptoms over the past few days, he made a preliminary diagnosis of a viral infection and started her on an antiviral drip. My aunt asked me, "Is this reliable?" I feigned ignorance. "I don't know. I haven't graduated yet. But treating a virus and killing germs should be fine, right?" My aunt figured that made sense, and with no other options, she sat with Jessica all night as the 4 dripped. The next day, whether it was the 4 killing the virus or something else, Jessica actually woke up. But I wasn't worried. I knew that as long as the leech wasn't removed from her nose, she would just keep relapsing, keep getting her blood sucked, and keep getting infected. When my aunt saw Jessica was awake, she didn't waste a second. She rushed home, grabbed Jessica's interview outfit, and brought it back for her to change into. "Hurry up. I'll do your makeup. The interview starts in 3 hours." Jessica spoke weakly. "But Mom, I have no energy." "You'll go even if you have no energy. Have you forgotten? You scored a dozen points higher than second place. All you have to do is show up for the interview, and you're guaranteed to land the job." "Mom, I don't want to go to the interview. I want to go to a real hospital. I feel like there's something crawling inside my nose." What ridiculous excuse is this now? Get yourself ready and go to the interview. I'm telling you, if you don't go to this interview today, we are cutting ties as mother and daughter. Jessica couldn't win against her mother. She had to force her weak body to change, put on makeup, and stand up. My aunt even got some stimulants from the clinic doctor to help Jessica stay alert. Watching her gulp down the pills, I couldn't help but marvel at her dedication to self-destruction. A stimulant like that would only increase her blood flow, making the leech in her nose feed even more frenziedly. Perfect. My aunt and I quickly drove Jessica to the testing center. Compared to the worried faces of the other parents, my aunt was remarkably relaxed. She knew that with Jessica's high score on the written exam, the position was practically a sure thing. She even asked me, "Sarah, it's so boring waiting here. Why don't we go book a table at a restaurant to celebrate your cousin's success? We can surprise your uncle when he gets back too." I smiled. Sure. A surprise or a shock, who could say? As expected, just as we returned to the testing center after booking the restaurant, we heard a woman gossiping. "Oh my God, did you hear? Something major just happened in one of the interview rooms." My aunt, who loves drama, eagerly rushed over. "What happened? What happened?" The woman said. "They just carried a young girl out. I heard she was in the middle of her interview and just started vomiting blood everywhere. It scared the interviewers half to death." My aunt gasped. "What a tragedy. Does that mean her interview score is void?" Of course. Even if she passed the interview, she'd never pass the medical exam. What employer would hire someone like that? Such a shame. I heard she's a fresh graduate. A fresh graduate? My aunt sked. Then it's the parents' fault. What does a 20-something know? If the parents don't pay attention, this is a government job exam. It's a lifetime decision. And you only get one shot as a new grad. How irresponsible. Exactly, another woman agreed, then asked my aunt, "Are you here for your kid's interview too?" "Yes," my aunt said, her voice swelling with pride at the mention of Jessica. "I'm not bragging, but I'm very hands-on with my daughter. She wanted to go out this past week, but I made her stay home and watch her online classes. That's why I say that other kids' parents are irresponsible. If my daughter passed the written exam only to vomit blood in the interview, I'd be so ashamed I'd jump off a building." I had to stifle a laugh. "Auntie, you said it yourself. Better make good on that promise." The other woman said, "Well, I wish I could be that confident for my son. He's in second place, but he's more than 10 points behind the first. I don't know if he can make it up." My aunt's pride swelled even more. "Oh, that's too bad for your son. My daughter's score is a dozen points higher than second place. This interview is a lock." The woman was speechless. Not just her, but everyone else who overheard now looked at my aunt differently, with envy, but mostly with jealousy and resentment. My aunt didn't understand that tall trees catch the most wind. You don't brag during the civil service exam process. Until the final results are posted, nothing is certain. And Jessica had only passed the written exam. My aunt finished her tirade with a condescending laugh, as if bestowing a gift upon the other woman. "But don't worry, you can always pray. What if your son's #1 competitor is the one who was just vomiting blood? Then your son is definitely in, haha. The woman, publicly humiliated, turned beet red with anger. The other onlookers also seemed to think my aunt had gone too far, and they shot her looks of disgust. I quietly stepped away, not wanting to be associated with her. A short while later, the woman's son must have come out, because she started waving happily. Ben. Mom's over here. Come on. When she said his name, both my aunt and I froze. My aunt had shown me the list of exam results. Ben was the name of the candidate in second place for my cousin's position. Ben walked over and said, Mom, don't worry, I've definitely got this. The first place candidate for my position started vomiting blood in the interview room. They had to carry her out. Hearing this, my aunt's legs started to tremble, and she almost couldn't stand. She stammered. What did you just say? Who was the person who vomited blood? Ben looked confused. The first place candidate. I think her name was Jessica. The moment he said the name, my aunt froze solid, as if struck by lightning. She just kept trembling, repeating the same words over and over. My daughter, my daughter. Just then her phone rang. My aunt was shaking too much to hold it. I had to answer it for her. It was the hospital. Is this a relative of Jessica? Please come to the People's Hospital immediately. Your daughter was just brought in after vomiting blood. She has a large leech in her nasal cavity. My aunt couldn't take it anymore. Her body gave a violent shudder, and she collapsed to the ground, out cold. When my aunt woke up, a doctor was pushing a freshly treated Jessica out of a room. Jessica lay on the gurney, and the moment she saw my aunt, she turned her head away, clearly not wanting to speak to her. The doctor said, the prognosis is not good. Your daughter waited too long. Her sinuses are infected with parasites, and we can only start with conservative treatment. If it works and we can clear the parasites, great. If not, she may need open sinus surgery. The words open sinus surgery made my aunt nearly faint again. She mumbled, How could it be this serious? Yes, how could it be this serious? Jessica laughed weakly from her bed. She stared at the ceiling as tears streamed from her eyes. The first day I had a runny nose, I wanted to go to the hospital, but you said it was just a cold and some medicine would fix it. The second day, I had a massive nosebleed, and you still wouldn't let me go to the hospital, saying I was just overheated. Then I fainted, and you only took me to a small clinic. And on the day of my interview, I told you I had no strength, that I felt something crawling in my nose, but you didn't believe me. You gave me stimulants, which just made the leech in my nose suck more blood. And finally, I vomited blood all over the interviewers, so tell me, how did it get this serious? Whose fault is it? At the end of her speech, Jessica couldn't contain her fury. She grabbed a vase from the bedside table and threw it at my aunt. The vase hit my aunt in the head, drawing blood, but she didn't move. She just sobbed, beating her chest. It's my fault. Mommy is so sorry, my daughter. Jessica laughed coldly. It's too late. Everything is too late. My government job is gone. Who says it's gone? The door to the room opened, and my uncle rushed in, looking like he'd traveled a long way. He glanced with disgust at my aunt, who was bleeding on the floor, and even kicked her in the chest. You useless thing. I told you to take care of our daughter at home, and you take care of her right into the hospital. My aunt cried even harder. Jessica, seeing her father, also started crying pitifully. Only I, seeing my uncle's familiar face, felt my fingers tremble. In my last life it was him. My own uncle. He had held a bag of leeches he'd collected from who knows where, and, while I was unconscious, stuffed them inside my body. He was strong. I couldn't fight him off. I could only lie there as those disgusting, slimy creatures writhed inside me, sucking my blood. Before I died, the last thing I heard was him screaming in my face. When my mom was alive, she always favored your family, and she did the same thing in death, daring to leave you a house? I'm her son, her only son. Why didn't she leave the house to me? You ruined my daughter's career, her whole life, so I'll take your life to pay for my daughter's. Fighting the urge to kill him, I calmly asked my uncle, Uncle, what do you mean the job isn't gone? My uncle said, I just checked the scores. Jessica may have vomited blood, But the interviewers must have felt sorry for her and gave her a passing grade. Her total score is still more than 10 points lower than the second-place guy. Jessica, on the bed, began to cry even more. But it doesn't matter, sweetie. All we have to do is make sure that guy has a problem with his medical exam, and then you'll get the spot as the next in line, right? Jessica was stunned. But how do we make him fail his medical exam? My uncle smiled, and his gaze suddenly shifted to me. Sarah, your parents died when you were 10. Your uncle raised you. Don't you think it's time you repaid your uncle's kindness? The hospital where I was doing my internship was the designated hospital for the civil service medical exams. My uncle's meaning was clear. He wanted me to swap Ben's urine sample with a tainted one, so he would fail the exam. I immediately said, loud and clear, "That's impossible." I couldn't believe it. Even in this new life, this old bastard was just as vicious and cruel. My uncle's face soured. "What do you mean impossible? It would be a simple thing for you to do." I said, "The civil service medical exams are extremely strict. Not only are there proctors watching everything, but sometimes they have one-on-one supervision for urination. Besides, Ben is a man. Men and women are tested separately. As a female nurse, I would have no access to his sample." My uncle cursed, "Useless." I paused, glanced at my uncle, and said casually, "You shouldn't even be thinking about doing something during the exam. Unless, of course, something happened to him before the exam." The moment I said that, my uncle, my aunt, and Jessica's eyes all lit up at the same time. Seeing their expressions, I smiled with satisfaction. "Uncle, oh uncle, I didn't say anything. If you decide to do something crazy, that's on you." After that, my uncle, who had been incredibly busy, suddenly started showing up at the hospital every day. He was always hanging around the gynecology, urology, and infectious disease departments. A few days later, my supervising doctor told me, "You need to be careful lately. Some medical waste went missing from the infectious disease ward next door, mostly used needles from syphilis patients. They haven't found out who stole it yet, so just be vigilant." I nodded and said, "Okay. But doctor, I think I might know who stole it." "Uncle, oh uncle, I can't wait to see what crazy thing you'll do next." Before long, my uncle's family invited Ben and his mother out to dinner. My uncle's excuse was, "My daughter has fallen very ill and has just recovered. She definitely won't be able to take this position. Since we've met, it must be fate. And especially since my wife was so rude to you both outside the testing center. I've arranged this dinner to apologize. If my daughter manages to get in next year, I hope you'll look out for her." With that, my uncle and Jessica raised their glasses to toast Ben as an apology. Ben and his mother drank. My uncle and Jessica also drank. Only I quietly drank nothing. After some more meaningless small talk, the meeting ended. A few days later, Jessica, now recovered from her nasal ordeal, pulled me into her bedroom. "Sarah, I've been feeling really unwell lately. I've even started getting these little bumps. What do you think it is?" Before I could answer, my aunt, passing by, yelled, "What little bumps? Why would you be getting something like that?" My aunt started to pull at Jessica's pants, but I already knew. From her swollen lymph nodes, I could tell. My dear cousin had syphilis. My aunt understood too. She hugged Jessica and cried, "How could this happen? How did you get this filthy disease?" I put the syphilis-tainted drink in Ben's cup that day. I looked at their faces and couldn't help but think to myself, who said you gave it to him? You gave it to yourselves. The day the medical waste went missing, combined with my uncle's recent behavior, I knew what he was planning. He wanted to infect Ben with syphilis before his medical exam. That same evening, I contacted Ben and told him everything about my uncle's plan. Ben was terrified. He was just a recent college graduate. He never imagined his competitors would be so vicious. But he was hesitant. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I hate my uncle's family. We're currently in a secret battle over my grandmother's house. He'll do anything to get his daughter that job. You're dealing with a madman, and trusting me is your only way out. If you don't believe me, just wait. See if they don't contact you in a few days." Sure enough, the next day I got a call from Ben. This time, it was his mother who called. "Young lady, that Mr. Tang really did contact us. He invited us to dinner. And so from that day on we played along. During the dinner, we secretly swapped Ben's syphilis cup with Jessica's. And so naturally Jessica contracted syphilis. But my uncle would never know any of this. I watched my uncle and aunt, their faces pale, rush Jessica to the hospital. I see that. This is nothing. This isn't even half the pain you caused me in my last life when you stuffed those leeches inside me. I will make you all pay. Jessica was taken to the hospital by my aunt that day and was officially diagnosed with syphilis. That day Jessica, in a rage, smashed everything in her hospital room. She pointed at my uncle and aunt, screaming, "You two monsters! One of you let a leech get in my nose and wouldn't let me go to the hospital, making me fail my interview. The other one made me drink from a cup tainted with syphilis. You've ruined my whole life." My uncle and aunt both knelt by her bedside, apologizing, calling her their precious princess. But Jessica ignored them, swearing she never wanted to see them again. Finally, my uncle, in despair, asked, "What will it take for you to forgive us? If you have the guts, go run over that Ben and kill him. If he dies, I can get his spot." Jessica then pulled the covers over her head and went to sleep, but she didn't know that my uncle had taken her words to heart. The next morning, I noticed my uncle wasn't home. By the afternoon, my aunt and I received news that he had been arrested. He was suspected of intentional injury. He had driven his car straight at Ben, but Ben had managed to jump out of the way in time. At the police station, he insisted his brakes had failed and he hadn't been paying attention, but he was still detained. When my cousin heard the news, she first cried, then laughed, then, as if possessed, looked at my aunt and cackled, "Haha, see? This is what you've done. My government job is gone, now Dad is in jail, and I have syphilis. Do you still want me to get this job?" To my surprise, my aunt, with tears streaming down her face, said, "Yes, daughter, you must get this job. Your dad has been arrested. We've already paid such a high price. If you give up now, it's like throwing away everything we've done." My aunt wiped her tears and, as if making a great resolution, said to Jessica, "I've already consulted a psychic from our hometown. Everything our family is going through is not normal. None of this is your fault, or my fault, or your father's fault. It's because of a curse." After my aunt said this, Jessica looked at her as if she were a ghost, waiting to see what other crazy things she would say. My aunt, in a trance-like state, perhaps from the recent blows, said with vacant eyes, "This curse is clinging to our family, that's why we have no peace. But there's a way to get rid of it. I've found out that Ben has a divorced father." Jessica had a bad feeling. "What are you trying to make me do?" My aunt continued her mystical rambling. "You go and sleep with his father." The moment my aunt said this, Jessica's jaw dropped. She stared at my aunt in disbelief. "Are you out of your mind?" My aunt said, "Daughter, this isn't madness, this is what the psychic told me to do. The psychic said it's called luck borrowing. Ben has already seen you, so you can't sleep with him, but his divorced father has never seen you. The fact that their family can produce a civil servant means they have good fortune. If you sleep with his father, you can borrow their family's luck, and you can even transfer the syphilis back to their family. The psychic said that if you sleep with enough men, the disease will naturally disappear." Jessica couldn't take it anymore. She screamed, unleashing a torrent of every curse word she knew at my aunt. "Get out! You're a lunatic. You go sleep with an old man. How can there be such a shameless, black-hearted mother in this world, telling her own daughter to sleep with an old man?" My aunt grew angrier and angrier, her eyes turning red. She looked at Jessica and said, "I'm trying my best to help you, and you curse me like this. What are you hesitating for? You sleep with him once, and you can borrow his luck. Even if you don't get his luck, you can turn around and accuse his father of rape. You ungrateful child. I've planned everything for you, and you still don't believe me? You already have syphilis, you're already dirty, what's one more man?" Hearing this, Jessica immediately started frantically pressing the nurse's call button, trying to get her mother thrown out of the room. I quickly tried to calm my aunt down. "Jessica is too unstable right now. Auntie, don't say these things to provoke her. You've forgotten she had a leech in her brain. What if you trigger her illness again?" Unexpectedly, my aunt said, "I think the leech has already made her brain stupid. It ate her brain. That's why she can't understand my good intentions. The moment my aunt finished speaking, Jessica's eyes rolled back in her head, and she fainted from pure rage. The next day, Jessica finally woke up. She opened her eyes to see my aunt holding a lunchbox. Her first reaction was to scream, "Get out, you lunatic!" But this time, my aunt was surprisingly gentle. "Jessica, Mommy was wrong. I shouldn't have suggested such a terrible idea. But you have to know, I was only doing it for you, to help you get a respectable, stable government job. Your father has worked on construction sites his whole life, and after I was laid off, I took whatever odd jobs I could find. It wasn't easy raising you. Please just try to understand." These words seemed to soften Jessica slightly. My aunt continued, "Come home with me. I'll take you home, and I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do." "Mom, do you really mean that?" "Yes." Jessica was just a young woman fresh out of college. The relentless series of blows had nearly shattered her psyche. She couldn't take it anymore. She threw herself into her mother's arms and sobbed, then let my aunt help her walk out. My aunt told me, "Sarah, can you go handle the discharge papers? We'll wait for you outside the hospital." "Okay." But when I finished the paperwork and went outside, the taxi my aunt had called was nowhere to be seen. I called her phone but no one answered. In that moment I knew Jessica's retribution was coming. It was 4 in the morning when I got Jessica's desperate call. "Sarah, help me. Sarah, come to the Xinyuan apartment complex and save me. My mom's gone crazy. She really sent me to Ben's father's house. My mom drugged me and his father, he raped me. What do I do, Sarah?" I tried to comfort her first. Don't be afraid. Stay where you are. I'm coming to get you." But before I went to her, I made a stop at the police station. I had calculated that my uncle's detention should be over. He should be getting out today. I hailed a cab and rushed over. When I saw my uncle, I immediately played the recording of Jessica's call for help. My uncle, a man in his 50s, heard his daughter's cries, and his eyes immediately turned red. He stormed out of the police station, hailed a taxi, and headed straight for the Xinyuan complex. The wind rushing through the car window made my heart pound. I was so thrilled, so excited. It was finally happening. Their family's reckoning had finally come. When my uncle and I arrived, Jessica was leaning against a doorframe, limping out. She looked like a ghost, wandering aimlessly in the dead of night, until her eyes met mine and my uncle's. Her tightly wound nerves finally snapped. She ran towards us crying, "Dad! Sarah! Save me! Mom's gone crazy." I quietly took a step back, letting Jessica fall into her father's arms. No way was I letting her get her syphilis on me. My uncle looked at Jessica, his heart breaking, and ground his teeth. "I'm going to kill that bastard." At that moment, my aunt rushed out, nearly incoherent, still screaming, "Jessica, come here. I've preserved the evidence for you. You can sue Ben's father. Now it's all done. Your bad luck will all be gone." My uncle couldn't hold back any longer. He rushed forward and slapped my aunt hard across the face. He didn't think one slap was enough. He picked up a brick from the ground and started smashing it against her. "I'll kill you, you crazy woman. What kind of black heart do you have to do this to our daughter?" My aunt glared at him. "What do you know? All you know is how to hit me. For decades you've hit me, and I've taken it. But this time, it's about our daughter's future, and I won't take it anymore. I was helping her. After she was raped by Ben's father, she can sue him, and then Ben will definitely be disqualified." Hearing her words, my uncle only got angrier. His eyes turned red, and he raised the brick, smashing it down on my aunt again. The exam. All you think about is the damn exam and the government job. Have you ever thought about what your daughter has been through?" He kept smashing, getting angrier and angrier, until my aunt was a bloody mess on the ground. But my uncle wasn't done. He held the brick and walked upstairs toward the room where Ben's father was. Jessica was so horrified by the sight of my aunt on the ground that she couldn't speak, only managing to stammer out single syllables. "Sarah, Mom is dead." I quickly covered her eyes, telling her not to look. "Yes, your mother is dead. And not just your mother, your father is probably about to die too. And one day, it will be your turn." The next morning, Jessica and I received a call from the police, asking us to identify the bodies and give our statements. Last night, my uncle had charged into Ben's father's room and attacked him. In the ensuing struggle, both men had died. After this ordeal, Jessica's mind finally snapped. She just kept muttering, "I need to get the job." It was only when Ben's name was publicly announced as the successful candidate that she seemed to return to her senses. She even called the organizing committee. "I want to report Ben. His father raped me. His father is a criminal. He's the son of a criminal, he can't be a civil servant." But Ben's mother just laughed coldly and clarified, "We divorced 10 years ago. Whatever his father did has nothing to do with my son, Ben." After hanging up the phone, Jessica was silent for a moment, then burst out laughing. "Haha, Mom, Dad, you were all fooled. Was it worth it? 2 lives for this stupid job. Ha!" After laughing, she completely lost her mind. I contentedly had her committed to a psychiatric hospital. Yes, I planned it all. The village psychic was someone I hired to play the part. And Ben had long hated his lecherous, gambling-addicted father. The moment his father heard he had passed the written exam, he had come back to demand money from him and his mother. Ben had been wanting to get rid of him for a long time. So we worked together and staged this whole drama. Now the show is over, and I can enjoy the inheritance my grandmother left me, all to myself. But sometimes late at night, I have dreams. I dream of my cousin in the psychiatric hospital. She stares at me with her clear, black and white eyes. "Sarah, I know the secret now. The secret of rebirth. As long as a person has unresolved resentment, they have a chance to be reborn. What do you think? Will I be resentful this time? And next time, will it be my turn to be reborn?" Sometimes I even dream that the woman in the psychiatric hospital is actually me. But all of this finds temporary comfort when I open the inheritance left by my uncle and aunt. I believe that this is all real, and I will live this life to the fullest. Even if my cousin and her family are reborn, at least in this world, I am happy. That's enough.